What if God has already answered your prayer, but you're ignoring it because it doesn't look like what you expected? You're praying for a godly relationship and you're expecting it to come in a very fairy tale way. Maybe in church, when a cute, tall, spirit filled guy walks up to you and says, God told me that you're my wife. But instead, there's this quiet, kind hearted guy in your circle who truly loves God, respects you, and is showing interest, but you're overlooking him because he doesn't fit the picture that you had in mind. Or let's say you're praying for a financial breakthrough and you expect a high paying corporate job, but God is opening doors for you to start a small business, build a skill, or even use your creativity online. Now, instead of taking that as an answered prayer or as a sign from God, you ignore it because you think that it's too small or not what you had in mind. You're asking God for confidence. You're asking God that you want to be bold, you want to be confident in your skin and in how you look as a woman. But instead of waking up one day magically feeling insecure in yourself, He's giving you opportunities to step out of your comfort zone. Maybe He's placing you in situations where you have to speak up, try new things, or even get rejected so that you can rely on Him and not on people's opinion. You're praying for healing from heartbreak, but instead of God erasing the pain overnight, of which He has the power to do so, He is surrounding you with a community, pushing you towards therapy, or leading you to focus on your personal growth. But because it is not instant, because you don't feel better all of a sudden, you feel like He's not answering your prayer and you're not making any progress. Maybe you thought that your big break would come through a major company or something huge, but instead it comes from a small startup, a friend's connection, or even a job that you didn't even consider before. Do you see the pattern? God ways are not our ways. God ways don't always match our expectation, and most times if we are not careful, we might just ignore the very thing that He's sending to bless us. This is exactly what happened to Nathanael in the book of John chapter 1 verse 18 to the very end. Now let me just give you a quick rundown of this entire story. So this is the time of Jesus. People were expecting the Messiah. They were hearing so many prophets talking about the coming of the Messiah. John the Baptist was always saying it, like, prepare your ways, and son of man is coming, somebody who is going to be more righteous than me, blah blah blah. So people in Galilee were very expectant and were waiting for their Messiah for years. Now John the Baptist kept talking about him. Now everyone had their own idea of how and where he would show up. People were thinking that he might just come down from the sky, he's going to look this, he's going to. People had big expectations of how and where the Messiah was going to come from. So when Philip was somebody that one of Jesus' disciples, of course. He was one of the first people to see Jesus. But when Philip went to tell his friend that he had seen the Messiah, his friend's name is Nathanael. When he went to tell Nathanael that, look, I found the Messiah and he is from Nazareth. Do you know what Nathanael's reaction was like? He was like, Nazareth, can anything good come from Nazareth? This is in John chapter 1 verse 46. Just in case you're wondering why he looked down on Nazareth wasn't exactly a place that people expected great things to come from. It was small, it was overlooked, and not really important in society. So in Nathanael's mind, there was no way that the Messiah would come from there. But what he did not realize was that God doesn't work based on human logic. Jesus was the Messiah and he was from Nazareth, whether it makes sense to people or not. And isn't that how God works in our lives sometimes too? Sometimes we expect these promises to show up in a certain way, but when they come from an unexpected place, or when we start seeing tiny signs that is not looking like what we prayed for, that is not looking like the answers of our prayer, we start to question them, and then we start to get doubts, we start to lose faith in God, we start to ask questions like, are you really sure that this is from God? Is this really what I prayed for? Is this really a sign from God? I'm not really sure. That is exactly what Nathanael was feeling like. He went from having so much faith and being so expectant and waiting for the coming of the Messiah. Now, the coming of Messiah for you could be that dream relationship you have, could be that dream job that you want, you get. And then when God started to show tiny signs in his life, and it wasn't looking like what he expected, his faith went from like 100 to a 10. But girl, let me tell you, the good news is that God always helps our unbelief, because of course he knows that we are flesh, he knows that we are blood, he knows that we are going to have doubt, he knows that our mind is going to play tricks on us, and that is why he always helps our unbelief. And that is exactly what Jesus did for Nathanael. So back to the story. Nathanael's doubt didn't make Jesus to reject him when he finally came to see the Jesus from Nazareth, like Philip had told him. Instead, Jesus did something very personal, and he spoke directly to Nathanael's heart. Before Nathanael even said a word to Jesus, Jesus greeted him by saying, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." This is in John chapter 1 verse 47. That immediately caught Nathanael off guard. Then Jesus said, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree," in John chapter 1 verse 48. Whatever happened under the fig tree was something deeply personal to Nathanael, something that no stranger should have known about, or something that he probably did not even tell anybody about. And just like that, when Jesus helped his unbelief by showing him more signs, Nathanael immediately declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel," in John chapter 1 verse 49. Here's the thing, Nathanael had no idea what the Lord had in store for him. Okay, and it's going to blow your mind. But before I tell you why, this is not the first time that God has helped someone overcome their unbelief. In Mark chapter 9 verse 24, a desperate father cried out, "I believe, but help my unbelief," and Jesus met him right there and healed his son. In Genesis 18 verse 10 to 15, Sarah laughed at the idea of having a child in her old age, but God still fulfilled his promise. God doesn't get mad when we have doubt. He meets us right there. Whenever you're having doubts for the promises that God has made in your life, like God promised you this, he promised you that, and all of a sudden things are not turning out the way you expect them to turn, don't be angry with God. Always remember that things are working out for your good. Even if things are looking so bad, things are definitely working out for your good in behind the scenes. But you have to always pray this one prayer: "Oh Lord, help my unbelief." He's going to help you. He's going to always want to help you, because I'm going to tell you the reason why God always wants to help our unbelief. But you need to always pray that prayer whenever you're losing doubt, whenever you're feeling like, "I don't believe this anymore. I don't really know if this thing is going to work." Pray this one prayer: "Oh Lord, help my belief. Show me the tiny signs. Show me anything, something that makes me know that you are still here with me. You're still working with me." You get what I'm saying? So because of this little sign that Jesus showed Nathanael, Nathanael's faith went from a 10 to 100 immediately. This just goes to say that our faith always grows when we see evidence of God's work in our life. That is why God gives us little signs, small reminders that He's still with us, He's still guiding us, and still working things out for us. And the truth is that faith is exactly what God needs to help us out. If you look at the New Testament, before Jesus performed any miracle, He always looked for faith. It wasn't because He needed faith to do these miracles. He was God after all. He can do whatever He wants to do. But because faith is what allows us to receive from Him. Over and over again, Jesus would say, "Your faith has made you well," or "Let it be done to you according to your faith." He was teaching people that faith is the key that unlocks God's promises, and that is why God always wants to meet us at our point of doubt. And that is why you have to always pray that prayer: "Oh Lord, help my unbelief," because when you have that faith, that is when you can be able to activate and get whatever you want to get from God. So let me just give you a few examples. In the book of Luke chapter 8 verse 43 to 48, the woman of the issue of blood has been suffering for 12 years, trying every single doctor, spending all her money, but nothing worked. Yet when she heard about Jesus, she believed that just by touching his clothes, she would be healed, she would be made whole. She did not wait for him to call her out and lay hands on her. She exercised faith and took action. And when she touched Jesus' robe, instantly she was healed. And Jesus turned to her and said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. The second example was in the book of Matthew chapter 9 verse 27 to 30. Two blind men followed Jesus. They were crying out for mercy. Now instead of Jesus healing them right away, Jesus asked them, do you believe that I'm able to do this? And they said yes. And Jesus responded, according to your faith, let it be done to you. The moment they believed, their eyes were opened and they could see. Jesus could have healed them without asking, but he wanted them to activate their faith first. Now the third story is in the book of Matthew chapter 8 verse 5 to 13, and this was the Roman centurion. I don't know how that's pronounced, but the Roman centurion came to Jesus. He was asking him to heal the servant, but instead of asking Jesus to come to his house, he said, just say the word and I believe that my servant will be healed. He believed so strongly in Jesus' authority that he didn't even need to see the miracle with his own eyes. Jesus was so amazed and he said, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. And at that moment, his servant was completely healed. Each of these stories just shows the same truth. When people had faith, miracles happen. Even today, God still works through our faith. Sometimes he gives us little signs to strengthen us, just like he did with Nathanael. But the real blessing comes when we can believe him even before we even see the evidence. So the question is, are you willing to believe God even before you see the miracles? Are you willing to trust in him? Are you really willing to believe that, yes, I trust him 100% to take over my love life, to take over my relationship, to take over my business, to take over everything that concerns me? I know as human beings, we are going to still worry, we are going to still have doubts, but I want you to always have in your mind that, I'm not the one driving, I'm not the driver of my life, like I'm not the person in control of my life. I have Jesus, like I've put everything in his hand. And even when things start to go south, even when things are not going the way that I planned, I just have trust that God knows what he's doing. Like he's the one that has the entire plan of my life. He knows my life from the end to the beginning. He knows everything. He knows what next 4 years of my life is going to look like. So if things are going the way they're going right now, I'm sure it's definitely for a reason. That's the kind of faith you want to have. And the moment you have that kind of faith, you unlock your miracles. So here's where it gets really interesting. Nathanael's faith, like I said before, went from a 10 to 100, and Jesus immediately rewarded him. Like his own reward was instant, like it was there. Jesus immediately rewarded him because his faith was activated. And this was in John chapter 1 verse 50 to 51, where Jesus said, you believe, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than this. Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. This just proved that faith always activates our miracles, like I've always said before, whether we realize it or not. When we open our hearts and choose to believe, we position ourselves to receive the blessings that God has already prepared for us. And here's the best part, the promise that Jesus made to Nathanael actually came through, because Nathanael became one of Jesus' disciples, and later he witnessed the fulfillment of what Jesus had told him. After Jesus' resurrection, heaven opened, and as he ascended, the angels of God were seen with him. They were like ascending and descending. That was exactly what Jesus had promised him, and it actually came to pass. It did not happen instantly, but it definitely happened. And that's how God promises work. Whether it takes days, it takes months, or it takes even years, his word will always come to pass. He said it, he will definitely do it. There's this Bible verse that I really like. I don't really know where it is, but I think I'll put it on the screen here. But I really love that verse. And whenever I think of that verse, it's like God is definitely swearing on his name that whatever I have spoken to you, whatever I have said about you, will definitely come to pass. And if it doesn't come to pass, the heaven and earth will fall down. Okay? Of which we know that God will let that happen. That means he's going to make sure that whatever he says for you will definitely happen. So today, I want you to hold God by his word. Hold him by his word. Always remind him of whatever he said to you, of whatever you read in the Bible, of whatever the pastor prophesied over your life. Always remind him that Jesus, you said this. God, you said this over my life. Like, what is it? Like, what's happened? So if you're holding on to a promise from God, don't doubt it. Stay in faith because He will always come through. But here's the thing, you need to try to recognize the small signs that are already in front of you. You don't want to miss them. That small job opportunity that shows up, that business idea that keeps popping in your head, but you keep pushing it aside, or that particular side hustle that you keep seeing everywhere on social media and you keep ignoring it because it's probably another scam or it's probably not something that you can do. Girl, just try it out. You never know. There are no such thing as coincidences. Number one, God's blessings don't always look the way you expect. Don't reject something just because it doesn't match the idea of how it should happen for you. Number two, your doubts do not disqualify you. God knows how to strengthen your faith just like He did with Nathaniel. All you have to do is pray, Lord, help my unbelief. That's the simple prayer, but God will definitely answer it for you. And number three, if God promised it, girl, He will do it. You may not see it now, but He's already working behind the scenes. So here's a reflection question for you. Ask yourself this: where have you been limiting God because of your own expectation? Take a moment to ask Him to open your eyes to the unexpected ways that He's moving in your life. And I'll see you in my next Glow Up with God talk with your girl, Gloria. Bye bye.